So what these guys are doing is they're putting these oysters through a tumbler. These aren't market size yet, so they're separating the different size classes of the oysters to from small to medium and large. A constant process of growing oysters is separating the different size classes of oysters. So he puts them in this drum, they tumble around, and the sizes get separated. So by putting the smaller oysters in the top of the tumbler, they gradually gently roll around, and the smallest ones come out at the beginning, the largest ones come out at the end. So these guys here are the largest of this batch that are coming out, and these will all go back in the water. We put them back in the water in their respective size classes. The small ones with the small ones, the larger ones with the large ones. This way the large ones don't outcompete the small ones for food. So this is Matunuck Oyster Farm. It's a 7-acre farm. We started down there at 1 acre and we expanded to 7 acres. It's a rectangle. On the other side of the farm is East Matunuck State Beach, a barrier beach. On the other side of that is the Atlantic Ocean. The oyster farm has to be tended to 12 months out of the year, and we have orders to fill every week. So it is, regardless of the weather, we have to come out here. When there's ice on the farm, we have to break the ice and harvest the animals regardless of the temperature. So we're entering the farm right now. On either side of the vessel, you'll see rows of oysters, just like rows of corn at a corn farm. There are rows of these cages with oysters in it. This is what the oysters start out in. 9mm mesh bag. They're all the same age, but they're slightly different sizes. Small ones in the bag with big ones, and then you got some medium ones, and they're all alive, which is the most important thing. You can see the new growth on the oyster around the edge of the shell. It's called the cuticle of the shell. So one of the things we do to create a better product is break that new growth off. And by doing that, it creates a thicker shell, a nicer cup, a more uniform product, which is more desirable for the customers. So we don't just break them off with our fingertips. We shake the bag like this when we're maintaining it, and the little particles of shell, the new growth breaks off. Every section, there's 5 sections in the farm. Every section has 45 rows, and each row has 100 bags. And so this is one bag. We'll pull up with some larger mesh bags with some slightly larger oysters in it. They're still not market size yet. This line is next to be maintained. It's got lots of algae. The algae that grows in the bottom doesn't grow on the top. So when we're in a hurry for a quick fix, we'll just flip the bag. But the right thing to do is take the bag out, separate the different sized oysters, and then put them back in their respective size classes in clean bags. They're on a PVC rack. The PVC keeps them off the sea floor so water can move below and above them. This area here, we seed oysters on the sea floor. So this creates a different product. The oysters absorb more calcium from the sediment, lending to a different appearance, and they also don't get as sweet. They're not opening and closing their adductor muscle as much. You can see the oyster has a slightly lighter color, lighter shell. The oysters take 2 to 3 years to grow. The fastest ones will grow in 18 months, but generally speaking, takes a little bit longer than that. So this is the floating gear. In this area, we have oysters in gear that's suspended off the sea floor. You can see the bags are held on, so we hold more in the rack. A little bit of wind will have the oysters move a little bit, so when the wind changes direction, the oysters move a little bit in the bag. And, the oysters like to be kind of agitated and rolled around a little bit. And oyster farming increases biodiversity. There's 10 to 10,000 times more living organisms within an oyster farm than there is in an adjacent water body. So aquaculture is agriculture, and aquaculture, shellfish aquaculture, is the epitome of sustainable agriculture. Oysters are filtering the water, taking phytoplankton out of the water, and therefore increasing dissolved oxygen available to other living things, using that phytoplankton for growth and reproduction energy, and really helping to clean the water body. They're not eating pollution, they're eating phytoplankton, but that helps keep the estuary healthy. The estuary is important to us because estuaries like this here in southern Rhode Island provide habitat for 2/3 of the commercially important species that we capture in fishing ports like Point Judith. Most of the species that we consider to be commercially important come to these estuaries to reproduce because they're protected from the waves of the Atlantic. They have different temperature regimes, different salinity regimes, and they just provide three-dimensional structure and a habitat place for different species to lay their eggs and hide from larger predators.